Now, I am teaching you how American literature, right? So, now it is the Native Americans, the people who lived there before the Europeans came. There was a non-literate society, no reading, no writing, so no literature. But when the first Europeans began to come there, was really in the 1570s, 1580s, but those colonies did not survive. But the first lasting colony that started was in 1607. 1607 is they start in one place which they call Virginia. It was named Virginia because Queen Elizabeth I is ruling the same time as Akbar in India, Queen Elizabeth in England. Queen Elizabeth was unmarried. She was called the Virgin Queen. So when they named this colony, they called it Virginia, named after Queen Elizabeth. So then there was, in 1603, Queen Elizabeth died, and the next person was James I. Okay, James I, and if you know the Bible, King James Version, so that's the same James. Now, he became king in 1603. Then previously they were already trying to start colonies in Virginia, but they failed. But in 1607, they started the Pucka colony, and they named it Jamestown, okay, after the new King James. Now, these people came for the purpose of getting rich. See, before this, in the 1500s, the Spanish had come to South America, and they found great gold in Central America, in Mexico, and in South America, in Peru. They conquered the Aztec and Inca empires, and they won great gold. But North America, there was no great empire, just the forest and plains-dwelling people. And so the people came seeking gold, but finding no gold. Some of them, they did not want to farm. They did not want to dig the soil. They only wanted to go into the river and search for gold. And they wanted to get rich quickly, but they were not growing any food. And in the beginning, there was majority of the people died in the winter time because they had no food. They did not prepare. The winter in America is colder than the winter in England, so they were not ready for the winter time. So there was one man, John Smith. He was a military officer, and he took command of the Jamestown colony, and he said, if you don't work, you don't eat. So he made everybody work, not only searching for gold. So then, because of him, they began to have more success in their colony. But the literature coming from this colony is mostly history, mostly the stories of what John Smith and some other people achieved. But there's not much literature from that area. The most history is telling you what happened, but sometimes essays, other forms of literature, are telling you the kind of society they think they should have. What should we are moving across the Atlantic Ocean to this place. What kind of society do we want to have here? So in Jamestown, there wasn't so much of that kind of writing. But in 1620, another group of people came across the Atlantic Ocean, and they were wanting to, they were supposed to go to the same Virginia colony, but they experienced a storm at the ocean going across. And they went to a completely different place. They arrived on the ocean, coast, far north of Jamestown. And this place, later, it became, now the ship they were on was called the Mayflower, the name of the ship. When the people arrived on the Mayflower, they saw, far away from Virginia, and we are here. So before they got off the ship, they talked together, what should we do? We cannot join that one to Jamestown because they're very far away. Remember, this is 400 years ago, and travel is very difficult. No highways, no airplanes, and no roads. Okay, and the ocean is very dangerous, and so they said we're going to stay here. But they made what's called the Mayflower Compact, which means a contract agreement. Everybody who's coming here to this society, to this colony, they all have to agree to these rules which we will make now. So, right from the beginning, you have the first document is stating what kind of society we think we should have. That's a different kind of idea than Jamestown. So in 1620, they went on the Mayflower. That's the name of the ship, the Mayflower. And then the contract is called the Mayflower Compact. Then, as time went by, in this area, the name of this area is Massachusetts. Now this is a long word. It was the state name. This word comes from the Native American people of that area, from their language. But first, these people who make the Mayflower Compact, they called their colony Plymouth. Why? They called their town which they established, they called Plymouth, because they came from Plymouth, England. They came on the ship from Plymouth, England. That was their town back in England. So they established their new place, and they called it Plymouth. Okay? And then they established another later, some years later, another one which they called Massachusetts Bay. Bay means a place, the ocean, like the harbor, okay? Massachusetts Bay Colony. Today, now, Massachusetts Bay Colony is where the city of Boston is now, okay? And Massachusetts Bay became the Boston Harbor. No. So these people who came from Plymouth and established on the Mayflower and established the Mayflower Compact, and later they started a branch colony at Massachusetts Bay, which was further north than Plymouth. And now Massachusetts Bay is Boston. It's the city of Boston. Now these people, their purpose in crossing the Atlantic was not to get rich. Their purpose was different. Their purpose was religious. In Britain, in England, under Elizabeth, there was an Anglican church, which is kind of like CNI in India. Okay, the Anglican church is Anglican and CNI are not the same, but it is a little bit similar. Okay. But they established, they were the leading church in England. They were called the Church of England. So, and under Elizabeth, she was very strict. She would not allow much variation, because the Roman Catholics were trying to Roman Catholic Spain and Church of England, they were fighting in a war during Elizabeth's time. So she did not want to give freedom to the Roman Catholic because she thought they were going to start a revolution inside the country with Spain's help to destroy her kingdom. So she was very strict and she did not give much religious freedom. So these people, they were called separatists because they separated from the Church of England. They were called Puritans because they were seeking a pure way of life. They felt Church of England was not so pure. They wanted more pure than that. So then the same people, when they crossed the Atlantic Ocean from England to America, they called pilgrims because pilgrim means traveler. Okay? So I think in India you also use a pilgrimage. You said people would make a pilgrimage to a religious place. This was their pilgrimage because they wanted religious freedom. That's why they crossed the ocean. So their whole reason of crossing was different than this one. Okay. Now, because of that, they generated much more literature. See, the thinking was completely different. Now, these people, what literature? One of the earliest writers from that area is a lady. All the ladies say yes. All the ladies, all the ladies say yes. Yes, okay. Yay for ladies, yes. Yay for ladies, okay. Now, one of the first one, her name was Bradstreet. This is her last name. And Bradstreet, okay. She was an early writer. And then this colony, Plymouth Colony, and then Massachusetts Bay Colony, the governor, William Bradford, he was an early writer also. William. Okay, and another famous writer from this place there was a family, two famous writers, and their family name was Mather. Okay? Now this man has an unusual first name, a strange first name. His name was Cotton Mather, okay? Now, the famous thing about him is he was writing articles promoting health, and he said certain diseases that some people used to say are caused by demons or like that. He said, no, it is a physical problem of the disease. And he said, we must search for better medicine. We must try to have better medical care to combat the diseases. But Cotton Mather was one of the pioneers for better health, focusing on better health in the country. Now, this time, we are talking, of course, it starts in 1600s, so all these people are in the 1600s. But then, as you go meanwhile, the history in England, what is going on? There was a civil war in England, and there was the king, after King James died, then his son, Charles, became king. There was Charles I, and then Charles I said, I do not want to listen to the parliament. I am the king, I am the law. And he was taking as his example the king of France. The king of France said, L'État, in French, L'État c'est moi, means the state, the government is me. Okay, I am the government. So if you have somebody, Prime Minister in India, who would say, I will not listen to Lok Sabha, the government is me. Okay, so then that's the same thing. Well, the King of France had great power in the 1600s, the most powerful king in Europe. And the King of England was trying to follow that example. So he said, I'm not going to listen to the Parliament. I'm the king here. But he needed money. And the Parliament said, if you do not listen to us, we will not vote any tax for you. Okay? You will not be able to fund your army. We will not be able to do anything. So in England, they had a big juggernaut over this. And then finally, the king asked the French army to come to invade England to fight against his opponent in the Parliament. So you understand, that would be like if you had Prime Minister fighting against the Lok Sabha, and the Prime Minister says, we will ask the Chinese army to come into India to fight against the Lok Sabha. That's like that, okay? So the people of England said, this king is a traitor to his own country, so he is in favor of his own power and not the country. So they arrested him, they put him on trial, and he said, I am the king, I do not recognize this court. This court has no right to try me. So they said, but we are trying you because you are a traitor to your own country. So anyway, then he was found guilty of treason against his country, and then they cut his head off. Charles I was killed, and Oliver Cromwell became the leader of England. But Oliver Cromwell, after he died, his son did not have the same power, the same ability, we should say, as his father did. So the people got tired of Richard Cromwell, his son. They got tired of him. They said, let us bring back the king. Well, the old king was dead, but his son was in France, Charles II. And they brought Charles back, Charles II. Now, you may hear of some states in America called Carolina. Okay? Carolina, there's two states, North Carolina, South Carolina. And these states come from the Latin for Charles, okay? It's from the same basic name. These states were founded in Charles' time. So then, and during this time, another piece of literature which is had much influence on the English language, and that was the King James Version Bible. Became the main Bible. Became the main Bible during Charles II's time, which is the late 1600s. Late 1600s. Oh, let's say 1670s, 1680s, 1690s, in there, you know. And during this time, the King James Bible is becoming more, not 1690s, 1680s, okay. Now, the influence of English on American literature is very strong all this time, because these are English colonies, right? So now, then, after some time, this is how we place the board. So, my watch is going to fall off. Now, as we go into the 1700s, things have changed. The attitude, the war between England and France was going on all around the world, including India. The French had a colony in Pondicherry. They had colonies in different places. England and France had a big war, which was going on in India, going on in North America, going on in Europe, and all around the world. You might say it was the First World War before the 20th century. It was already, so it was called the 7 Years' War. And they fought, France and England fighting for power. and England won the war. And so France lost Canada. They lost all of Canada, became British rather than American territory. And in India, the French were kicked out of most places. They kept Pondicherry, but almost everything else they lost. Chennai, Calcutta, these places, England and France, England won the war. So then, during this 1700s, however, the American people, the colonies are spreading. Now, if you look at the map of America, you see this, Florida, Virginia is in here, and then up here is this Boston, okay? And this Virginia is in the middle in here. And this is Florida. Florida at that time was still a colony of Spain, and so they were speaking Spanish, and their whole literature is different at this time. Then, these people, there are some mountains that go along here, okay? These mountain range goes like this, okay? After this war was finished in 1763, the war was very costly for the World War, okay? And England said, oh my goodness, we don't want any more battle. It's very costly for our country, so no more fights, peace now. So the English government said, this mountain is the dividing line. It said the English colonists have to stay on this side, and Native Americans, American Indians, stay on that side. No fighting, okay? Because they were fighting during this war. The Native Americans, most of them, favored the French because the French did not send so many colonists. The English sent lots of colonists, and they were farmers. So they would cut down the trees, they would make fields. The French were sending traders, they would trade for animal skins. What did they want animal skins? It was the fashion to wear hats made of beaver skin. Beavers, okay? Now, why did they like hats made of beaver skin? Beaver skin, the fur is very tight, and beavers are water creatures, and their fur repels water. So you wear a beaver skin hat. When it rains, it sheds water. It doesn't absorb into the fur. So it was a very practical thing. And everybody in Europe, they want this beaver skin hat because it looks nice, it's beautiful, and it's also practical. So they would make trade with the Native Americans. We will give you guns. We will give you alcohol. We will give you mirrors. We will give you things that you cannot manufacture. Exchange beaver. No, okay. So they and the French did this, and the Indians liked that, but the Indians did not like it. They were going to cut down the forest to make a field because the hunting ground was gone. So the Indians, mainly this Native Americans, I know you say they are not Indians, we are Indians, okay? But you understand, when Christopher Columbus went there, he thought he was in India, so he said, I have crossed the ocean. I've crossed the ocean down in India. They did not know that this continent was there. Okay, that was, so everybody called them Indians, and to this day, still, we can say Native Americans, but that takes longer to say. It's English is short. So, because there had been involvement during this war, most of the Native Americans siding with the French, but the French lost. So now, to keep peace, they said we have to make this white people stay on this side, red people stay on that side. But that did not work because this area was settled along the coastal area. It was already settled. A lot of people, they already moved there. They already had big farms. They already had. So the new people who came, where did they go? Okay, They want to come to America because in England or Scotland they have no land. All the land is owned by the big landowners. So the small farmers, they save their money, they try to cross the ocean. When they come, they said, but there's no land here also, same problem. So where do we go? And they were going into the mountains on this side. Into mountain areas and small farms. But more people coming. And England said, you cannot cross this, you stay on that side. So this was one of the reasons, there are many reasons why there was a revolution against the English. But one of the reasons was this, they wanted to expand, and they were not permitted. But in 1775, the war, the shooting began between the British Army and the settlers. And in 1776, first they were fighting over tax. But then in 1776 they said, no, we want independence. So then at this point it became a war for independence. Now literature, before this time, much of the literature is copying the style of English literature. Even the literature which is about America is still copying the style of the British style. There was a guy called, there was a man called James Fenimore Cooper, and he wrote stories. And he lived up in this New York area in here. And he did not travel up this side. But he wrote books about the Native Americans and the people who were out in the wilderness. The white people, the pioneers, the explorers who were there. He wrote about them. But his writing is from his imagination, because he has never been here. So he is imagining, he reads some stories that people wrote when they came back, and then he tries to imagine what it's like. But his books, although they may be interesting, they are not realistic, because it's anybody who reads it says, that's not the way it is. I've been there myself. So, but he wrote a series of books. Now, have you ever seen the movie Last? The Mohicans is the movie, and the name of the book is the same. Now, in the movie, they have boy-girl romance, which is not in the book. Okay, that's Hollywood. Okay, Hollywood is that way. Okay, but the book, he wrote several books. This is the most famous one. Now, there are other people coming from his time